Eccoci, bentornati a tutti quanti. Siamo pronti a ripartire con la seconda parte della giornata qui a Ctrl Shift, sperando di tenervi belli svegli dopo questa pizza fritta che penso tutti siete gustati, quindi cercheremo di evitare l'abbiocco. E per farlo questo pomeriggio sarà ricco di contenuti, ma sarà anche intervallato da interventi un po' più divertenti, un po' fuori dal comune. Quindi vi consiglio di restare qui nella chapel perché ci sarà anche da ridere, ci saranno delle challenge molto divertenti. Partiamo con il primo speaker appunto di questa seconda parte della giornata. Lui è il co-founder di Taproot Wizards e ci parlerà di un'ode a Bitcoin e la sua politica. Facciamo un applauso a Eric Wall.
All right, I don't know what that meant, but that was sounded beautiful. It was very nice sounding Italian language. So, yeah, I'm Eric Wall. Nice to see a bunch of people here. We are going to talk about Bitcoin consensus politics, or more or less, we're going to talk about the death of Bitcoin consensus politics. This didn't turn out, the resolution didn't turn out so well, so we can actually go to the next slide. Hold on, I think I got the clicker here right. This is supposed to be, back in 2017, there was a war between those that wanted big blocks in Bitcoin and those that wanted small blocks. And when you try to activate a change in the Bitcoin protocol, and there are multiple different factions that have different views of what they want the system to do, you can turn it turns into what's known as a chain split situation, where you can model these different outcomes depending on how much hash rate is supporting each fork of the system. There's a bunch of game theory involved, and the system can split into a myriad of different networks. And for those that were around then, the only thing that happened was that we got two forks, the one that we're currently on now, the SegWit fork, and we also got another one that's called Bitcoin Cash. But for those that were really interested back in the day to understand all the myriad of things that could happen, this is a diagram that me and my friends drew at the time. So I'm gonna skip to the next one and see if, let's see. Okay. Does anyone recognize this? Has anyone seen this before? Maybe one person. I'm just trying to get a vibe check of the kind of audience that's in the room. So this is the screen that everyone was looking at in let's see, 2018. No, 2021. That's the date. 2021 was the last time that we actually activated a soft fork in Bitcoin, and that was the Taproot upgrade. And what you're seeing here in this screen here is that each little square is a block. Each block that signals that they want to activate the Taproot upgrade creates a green block, and the miners that create blocks that aren't signaling for Taproot activation create red blocks. So for the people that were like super interested in Bitcoin upgrades, they were like watching this as if it was the Super Bowl. Like, come on, give me one more square, one more green square. And it's like, oh, it's a red square. And we needed, if I remember correctly, we needed 90% of the squares to be green to get the upgrade that was Taproot. Let's see. This, considering only like 2 people had seen the previous chart, I'm guessing that no one has seen this diagram before. Is this? I know it's hard to read, but for the people that look at this a lot, they'll like recognize it immediately. This is the diagram that sort of most represents the most recent consensus struggle that we had in Bitcoin, which was around 1 year ago, 2 years ago. Mostly, I think it peaked around 2024, 2025, we're trying to get covenants into Bitcoin. And for those that don't know what the covenants is, it's like a small functionality thing that we can get into Bitcoin. Actually, it could unlock tons of useful things like trustless bridges to any kind of system, privacy systems, smart contracts. But the conversation sort of stalled here. So for each of these rows, for each of these columns, the one with the most green in it, that's the one that's doing the best. And this was the one that I was championing, and that one is the one that's called CAT. And as you can see, it has the most green, but not enough green. So we're still here, and we don't have opcat in Bitcoin today. Fun fact, if we had opcat in Bitcoin, we could actually do zero knowledge proof. So all like the cool technology from Ethereum could exist on Bitcoin if we had this tiny little upgrade called CAT. And what I'm going to talk about now is, I don't think that there's like a good book you can read. There's no good talk that you can read that talks about like what happened to Bitcoin. Because a lot of people now, especially with quantum and other things, they come up to me and say, okay, well, Eric, the Bitcoin price is going down. We need to fix Bitcoin. We need to fix the security budget, and we need to make Bitcoin quantum proof. We need to get post-quantum signatures in Bitcoin. And then they ask, like, so who do we talk to? Like, who's the person that we go and say, like, make the upgrade? And it's a funny question to ask for a system that has tried its entire lifetime to hide that person, to hide that button. So Bitcoin is a system where everyone is working the hardest that they can, so that there is no person, there's not supposed to be a person that you can go and talk to. Bitcoin is a system. It upgrades when the system wants to, and not because you went and talked to a particular person. So it's always a funny question. Like, take me to your leader. Like, we worked 10 years not to have a leader, so I can describe to you how the system has worked in the past. It's not a guarantee that it's how it's going to work in the future. But if you are interested in this and you're trying to find the way in, then having some of this background can be helpful to you. So. Yeah, none of these slides are showing very well, but it's not important. At my company, we actually try to make like a little diagram of how it goes when someone proposes an upgrade and all the different steps that you have to go through. So like it starts with, you have to write something on the mailing list maybe, then it turns into a GitHub conversation, and then it goes through a bunch of trolls that has to comment on your upgrade. If you did a little mistake, you go to the graveyard, you have to start all over again. Eventually, where you want to get with your upgrade after like the GitHub thumbs ups and thumbs down has essentially approved you, you go to what's known as a group called the Council of Mergers. These are the people with merge access to the GitHub repo in Bitcoin. There are 5 people. There used to be 6, but one person got ousted recently. I'm going to get into why. Her name is Gloria Zhao, prolific young female Bitcoin developer that we recently lost. And this goes on. Like, so we made this diagram so that people could sort of look at the whole flow of how a proposal goes from its inception to finally being merged in Bitcoin, and it ends sort of here. So it's a very long and windy road, and for the people that are involved in the process, they looked at this and it was like, even the people that hate me and my company, that thought that this was very funny because it was sort of on point, but I think I'll have to send you the PDF if you actually want to see it. Or you can go to quantumcats.xyz and you'll find it there. So I have this quote that I think is very apt when it comes to how we make changes in Bitcoin. I don't know if you've heard, this is a popular meme. People make all kinds of variants of this. My father-in-law is a builder. He's insanely gifted. We were in a cathedral together years ago, and I asked him what it would cost to build it today. I will never forget his answer. We can't. We don't know how to do it. So if someone asks you, how do we build this thing, like today, like maybe you just not lost the knowledge. We don't know how to do it anymore. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin upgrades. Like we used to be able to do it, but we can't. We don't know how to do it anymore. But I'll try to get a little bit more specific. So some people think that, Eric, what are you talking about? Like everyone knows how Bitcoin upgrades happen. It's just, you just these are all the Bitcoin nodes, and you can see like which percentage of the nodes run which client. And isn't it just so that like if everyone runs a particular client, then the network upgrades? Yeah, you can look at it that way, but that's like studying a system from the outside and like measuring something that doesn't really describe how something actually happens in the network. Like these numbers aren't just going to change themselves. Like there needs to be something way more important than nodes, and it's not miners. Could be miners, but it's not miners. It's people. And now I'm going to talk about those people and how they work. And so, who here recognizes? Does anyone recognize anyone in this picture? You recognize all Peter Willie? Which one is Peter Willie? That guy? That guy. Okay, so usually how it works in Bitcoin consensus politics is that the guy with the biggest beard has the most power. So Gregory Maxwell is like a little bit. Peter Willie has a lot of power, but he's more like sort of the hands and arms, and Maxwell is sort of the gigabrain. These three men came up with and implemented and they made Taproot happen. They invented Taproot, they coded up Taproot, they deployed Taproot, people ran the client, and because of that, Bitcoin has the latest upgrade called Taproot, which not a lot of people like right now. Like, some people think it was an accident because it kind of threw quantum safety out the door, and it invited a bunch of people like me to make JPEGs and spam on the Bitcoin chain. So a lot of people are actually angry about that. I actually get death threats about misusing Taproot for not the purpose it was intended for. So anyway, how they came to be in this position was how it essentially works in Bitcoin is that if you're powerful enough to get an upgrade through. So in the 2017 block size wars, these guys were the winners. They were on the side of segregated witness. Peter Willie, he also coded and wrote up segregated witness, and it was deployed. And ever since then, like it was the two camps of Bitcoin, the big blockers and the small blockers. And the small blockers, they looked to these wise old men, so, okay, what's the next upgrade? And they're just sitting around and just waiting, okay, tell us, Daddy, what's the next upgrade for the system? And so they did Taproot, but after that, something changed. So Peter Willie, and so Vladimir Vanderland is also a little bit important. He has like a janitor role in the GitHub repo. He's the one that actually merges changes into a packaged software that you double click on. He was the lead maintainer on GitHub. He resigned in 2023. So I'm going to try to describe to you why the situation, like why can't we just look to these wise old men to come up with a new upgrade now? Where did they go? So the lead maintainer is not pictured. He removed his own merge privileges. He thought there were more important things to do in the world. Peter Willie also stepped down from consensus discussions altogether. He doesn't think that he shouldn't be touching any code that changes the consensus logic of Bitcoin anymore. So he's out. Gregory Maxwell has been fighting with trolls on Reddit for, he's still alive, but you have to go to the Bitcoin Cash subreddit, which isn't even the main Bitcoin forum. It's like a failed fork of Bitcoin, where he is still, like to this day, fighting with people that he thinks is wrong about a previous debate. So I don't know, lost his mind. Still brilliant, still respect him a lot, but it's not really being engaged anymore in current governance proposals of Bitcoin. So both of them kind of stepped back. Some of it has to do with, a lot of it actually has to do with that crazy Australian guy. Have you heard about that crazy Australian guy who said his name, Craig Wright, who said that he was Satoshi? He ended up suing a bunch of Bitcoin developers. He is a big reason for why many of these people like withdrew from important stuff in Bitcoin. And then there's Andrew Poelstra. Andrew Poelstra is still alive. All of them are alive. Andrew Poelstra is still breathing and he's active, and he really wants to make things happen. So 2024, he was promoting this upgrade that I was talking about, the one that I was promoting, which is up cat. So he really wants it to happen, but it turns out that Andrew Polstra is not strong enough on his own. He doesn't have the power on his own to make consensus changes. So Andrew Polstra really, really liked cat, and he went on podcast and he said, I think we should act. He said, you, the listener, go and upgrade cat right now. And then nothing happened, so one man's beard is not sufficient. You need like 3 of them or something. So he really tried, and so, but now we know that like there is no power, or like there's no high priest, there's no credible wise men in Bitcoin enough to sort of drive upgrades in Bitcoin anymore. And I think maybe that's going to get worse. Bitcoin is not the same system like this. It's not the same system anymore when it was just a bunch of nerds with beards that decided what happened. Now you have like the BlackRocks and you have the Michael Saylors that own 5, 6, 7, 10% of the supply, and it's turning into we got the institutions here, but when you invite the institutions, like no one even remembers these people's names anymore. Like most people in here haven't even seen their faces or knew the work that they did on Taproot. So it's like hard for them to keep making upgrades. Also, they don't want to, because getting involved in Bitcoin consensus politics is really annoying and hard, and you burn out. So now there's a vacuum, a power vacuum in Bitcoin. There's no one that really can. Now there's my screen is locked. That was a very powerful vacuum that sucked out the presentation into. I know how computers work. Maybe I'll just click on some buttons here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so in the vacuum of these 3 wise men that are not there anymore, if you look in the Bitcoin GitHub repository, there are still people that have merge access. And when I say merge access, I mean they have the ability to take proposed changes in the GitHub repo and push it into the latest Bitcoin client, the Bitcoin Core client. And most of them are even like less known than the bearded men that I showed you. And they're also super scared to touch anything, right? Because they weren't there, they weren't working on segregated witness, they weren't fighting with the big blockers in the block size wars, they didn't invent and come up with like something like Taproot. There were huge, complicated changes. So they're left with like the control, but they're all very scared. They don't want to mess up. Like Bitcoin is a $2 trillion system. Do you want to be the one that like, oh, I think this parameter should be changed this way, and oopsie, now everyone lost $2 trillion. Like, so they're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. So they are younger, less experienced, and they're the one. Actually, this is a little bit outdated. Gloria, like I told you, is not there anymore, and I want to talk a little bit about that because that's also important to understanding Bitcoin consensus politics. What happened to Gloria? Gloria was a prolific, fantastic developer. She made, during the time that she was active in the repo, if you read like how structured she was and how much thought that she put into the actions that she did in the GitHub repo, it's very sad that she was kicked out. But Gloria, she never made any consensus changes. None of these people made any consensus changes. Like they didn't make any changes to the root system itself. Gloria was a maintainer of a part of the repo that had to do with the relay network, so like how transactions are relayed, and the mempool. So it's like a sort of like a cache of transactions that are trying to get into the system. So she's working on like a small peer-to-peer networking part of the system, and because she changed a parameter. Not a consensus change, like nothing that changes the protocol of Bitcoin. It was just the standardness of a particular transaction type. She increased the size limit of it. It didn't result in like larger transactions being propagated on the network. It was just like, she reasoned essentially like, okay, there are multiple transactions types here. The largest transaction that you can make is 400 kilobyte. This particular transaction has a limit of on 80 kilobyte. That doesn't make any sense because if someone wants to spam the network, they can just use this 400 kilobyte one. So I'm just going to remove this limit on this other one. And then her action was like misconstrued as she was being a part of a group that wanted to destroy Bitcoin with, and I'm not joking. She maybe you heard about like all the dick butts on the Bitcoin chain. That like 2024 people started spamming the Bitcoin chain with pictures of wizards and cats and dick butts. That's just like people having fun and using like the Bitcoin system, the transactional part of the system wasn't really used for much. People using Lightning, people are not transacting much. They're like buying IOUs and MicroStrategy shares. So a bunch of like the fun, trolly culture of Bitcoin decided to flood the system with these kinds of things, and it was interpreted that Gloria had something to do with this, and then she got so much hate and hate mail, death threats, that she is now no longer with the project. So that's not even someone that's like that's someone not even trying to change the consensus of Bitcoin. That's just someone like tweaking a small parameter, getting the mob against you, and then having your essentially like life, career sort of ruined. And it resulted in these people that were upset about the JPEGs, about the dick butts. They were so upset that actually 20% of the nodes here, if they're real, we don't know. Like can also be like fake, but we think it's real. So around 20% of all the nodes in the Bitcoin network are now like the burning cause, like what gets them out of bed, what they're burning for is to get less dick butts in the Bitcoin system. Like it doesn't have anything to do with should we fix the security budget. Like that's kind of like the mining revenues are always halving every 4 years. And we haven't seen transaction revenue like go up to compensate for that. Should we do something about that? Maybe. No, we want to get rid of the dick butts. That's the. What do we want to do about quantum? Like quantum computers seem to like a lot of. There are papers coming out showing that maybe these are easier to build than we thought. And you have people like Dan Bonnet and Scott Aronson, long time like people that are being critical about like the advent of quantum computers. Do we want to maybe start preparing Bitcoin for quantum attackers? No, we want to get rid of the dick butts. That's the issue. What about privacy? What about the fact that anyone with like a reasonably intelligent AI can like do analysis on the entire history of all Bitcoin transactions and sort of draw links between different transactions and figure out what you did when you bought your first drugs with Bitcoin in 2012, and also how you sent money to your mother and how she spent those Bitcoin. Maybe we want to do something about that. No, we want to do something about the dick butts on the chain. That's what we want to fix. So that is the sorry state of Bitcoin. Like after I came to this part of the presentation, I was thinking to myself, I don't know how to proceed with the presentation here. Like, what's the good message here? How do we leave this room feeling like invigorated and happy, and that we can do things and things are not things are not awful? So actually, I had to pause my presentation and go for a walk for a while and think about, how do I turn this around? Because I've dug myself into a hole here. So Bitcoin is ossified, and we should all go home. Like, just give up. There's nothing to do here. There's no one that can change anything. Should we just go home now? I don't know how you feel. So I've got this kind of question. I've gotten it so many times in Bitcoin before. That Eric, what should we do with the security budget problem? You can see, right, that this is when Bitcoin was new, there was 15 Bitcoin in each block, and every 4 years it halves, goes down. And the hope has always been that this green stuff, which is the transaction fees, the user-generated fees, not just what the system mints itself, it should grow and then like take over from the orange stuff, but that's not happening. And for a long time, like I have a lot of Ethereum friends that are like, Eric, you know that the security budget problem in Bitcoin is like going this way. How can you still support Bitcoin? Like, yeah, how can you still support this knowing that it's going to fail? And I have answer for that I've been giving for, I don't know, 5 years now. And it goes pretty much like this. This sounds like a cop-out answer, but I'm going to describe what this is. Bitcoin is a UTXO set. And I'll have to explain what that means a little bit more. So Bitcoin is essentially a list of unspent Bitcoins. Like it's a list of, this key has this number of Bitcoin, and he has the right to spend them today. So Bitcoin is a bunch of transactions, and the last transactions on each chain is like the spendable balance. And if you have that, if you have like the historical log of Bitcoin transactions, you have the list of the spendable Bitcoin. And all this other stuff, all this, yeah, I used a little ChatGPT to make this look, cool and everything. All this other stuff, like the consensus rules, yes, they're very important. Some people say that the consensus rules of Bitcoin are so hard to change that it'd be like finding gold on an asteroid in space, and they're like rock hard. At the end of the day, it's like people, it's consensus. So we have consensus rules around this UTXO set that decides like who can spend these, who can modify this UTXO set. The UTXO set is the important thing. The list of who owns which Bitcoin, that is the important thing. We have these very complicated consensus rules with cryptography deciding how that can be modified. We have price, the price goes up, the price goes down. We have memes, we have culture. We have the social layer, like people talking about Bitcoin, people arguing, people with beards. And we have the computers that are networked all across the world sending messages to each other. And we have the miners, the SHA-256 miners, these giant data centers. But all of that can set on fire, and it can go poof. Now there's nothing. Now there's just the UTXO set. It's just a list of who owns which Bitcoin. And if all that goes away and this is all we have left, we still have a little guy that can download the UTXO set to his computer. And you know what he can do? He can come up with new consensus rules, new social layer, new consensus mechanism. It can be proof of stake, it can be proof of work, it can be anything he wants. So anyone in the world can always just take a copy of the UTXO set and start a new social layer and a new consensus mechanism. So as long as the UTXO set lives, as long as the database of the Bitcoin lives, there will always be someone that says, you know what, I want the system to survive. So if there was something about the previous components around this that didn't work, then I can just create new parameters. I can get another group of people to agree with me. And if that is the most functional Bitcoin, if that is the one that people appreciate the most, then that will be the new Bitcoin. That is how Bitcoin forks work. So no, I'm not worried about like some parameter failing, that proof of work mining doesn't work, or that subsidy, like the security budget isn't enough. I'm not really afraid of that. Because at the end of the day, you end up with a UTXO set, and this can always live as long as there are computers that can download it. There's only one small problem that I'm going to leave you with, and that is, what if this happens? What if you get a quantum attacker in there, and he starts changing the UTXO set itself? If a quantum attacker gets into the UTXO set, and he starts to change all the, like, who owns which UTXOs, then it becomes a situation that we cannot recover from. So that is why, like, the quantum question is the hardest problem that Bitcoin has ever had to solve before, because if it gets to this point, it becomes extremely difficult to recover the system. So for that reason, that's something that we, the Bitcoin community, has to work on now, preemptively, before the UTXO set gets corrupted. So all types of attacks in Bitcoin before, I think they've been manageable in some way. This is one that, for various reasons, the corruption of the UTXO set may not be manageable. It also requires us to be out there and acting ahead of time. We need to migrate away from this system to another one where you can have quantum safety. And that process, like, it can take 5-10 years. So you can't really wake up one day and be like, okay, now we're gonna prepare Bitcoin for quantum attacker. So how do we do that? And I think, hopefully, I think that there are a bunch of other presentations on this conference that talks exactly about how to protect Bitcoin against quantum attackers. So that's not going to be a part of my presentation. This is like a historic background of Bitcoin as a consensus system and how it works. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the end of my talk. So I was gonna, if I have some time left, I was thinking that we could pass around a microphone if there's anyone that has any questions that they want to ask. We can pass it around. There's a man over there.
Does it work? Yes. Okay.
I'll take one. Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate the history and the background. Very helpful. 2 quick questions. What, just talking about the last page, what is your view on the quantum attack and how do we solve for it? And second, which is the most important question, is where's the wizard hat? I was looking forward to that. The hat.
The hat. Yeah,
the
sorry
robe.
about. Yeah, sorry. Didn't fit into the into my luggage this time. I'll bring it the next time. Yeah. So what do I think is going to happen, like with the quantum and everything? So I think I see a lot of people that are very critical right now and thinking that Bitcoin is not acting fast enough and they're not doing enough and the conversation seems very stalled. I think, like, at least right now, if you compare it to a year ago, this is the most healthy the climate the Bitcoin conversation has ever been in. Started with a shout out to, well, didn't start with, but sort of got really amplified when Nick Carter started writing articles in a language that regular Bitcoiners could understand. And then, so what does a healthy discussion climate about quantum look like? Well, it has multiple parts, right? It has people that are panicking, like screaming from the top of their lungs, freaking everybody out, saying Bitcoin is going to go to zero if we don't do anything fast, and a quantum computer is going to be here tomorrow. You need these people. You need those people to rile people up. And then you need some other people that say, no, I'm not convinced, and because you need that for every type of thing. Like if someone comes around and screams something that the world is going to explode tomorrow, you need some people who are more on the pessimistic side, and then those people need to argue and for a while until it sort of becomes apparent who has the weaker arguments. So you need both the panickers and the ones that are trying to calm everyone down and saying Bitcoin is a stable network that moves slowly and only upgrades if it's really proven. Right now in quantum, we haven't proved that we can run Shor's algorithm on a fault-tolerant quantum computer. We've never factorized a number larger than 15. Like these are, I don't think they're good enough arguments, but they are arguments and they need to be explored. And then you also need cryptographers that are inventing new post-quantum safe signature schemes. And we are doing that. So like, I think the ones that is most popular right now is Shrinks and Shrimps that are from Nick Jonas from Blockstream Research. He's trying to figure out a way to use hash-based signatures that are as small as possible. Still big. Other people are looking into lattice-based schemes. There are people looking into isogeny-based schemes. And there's a conversation around that. So we'll see what the eventual post-quantum safe signature scheme we move to. And then you need the game theorists to think about, okay, now we know which kind of post-quantum scheme we want to move to. We know that we eventually want to move to one. How do we sort of phase out the old ones, and with which timeline? And what do we do with the Satoshi's coins? And what do we do with the new taproot outputs? So there are different camps. All of them have a lot of work to do now. All I can say is right now they're doing it. I think maybe they're not doing it fast enough. They're not realizing how urgent it is, but maybe I'm the one that's wrong. So I cannot prove that the risk of a quantum attacker is really, really it's going to be 2029 or 2030. I can't prove that. But what I can say is that the Bitcoin system is not asleep. It is acting, and there are people running around and saying, hey, this is a type of attack that we need to prepare for way ahead of time. Way ahead of time. Like, we can't do it like Taproot, where we argue about nothing and then comes out 3 years later and it doesn't cover all the cases that you want to. So we're doing the work. Is it going as fast as maybe we would want to? No. Is it a complete disaster? I don't think so either. So we still have a chance.
Okay, we still have a little bit of time.
Hi, I'm Lucia, nice to meet you. So you talk about the security budget problem, and many solutions have been proposed, such as increase the supply, make the supply of Bitcoin from infinite, or making the token holders to pay like a fees that will alter the nature of Bitcoin. Or there are projects that are trying to build a marketplace on Bitcoin, that are trying to use the Bitcoin layer to create a secondary economy that will increase the transactional fees and reach the same level of the subsidy, basically. So I don't know if you know some projects and if you have any idea. I'm talking about the DMT NAT protocol. I don't know if you have heard about it.
What's the name?
Digital matter theory, non-arbitrary token.
No, I haven't heard about that, but I've heard about like a myriad of different meta protocol layers on Bitcoin that are trying to increase the fee revenue of the Bitcoin system. Before, some of them are building decentralized exchanges, some of them are building other type of like roll-up-like systems using Bitcoin as a data availability layer. Generally, what you want to make sure is that when you're designing another mechanism on top of Bitcoin, and you have some type of fee revenue to capture, it has been sort of proven that these spiky fee revenue like protocols, so with this dick butts and images, and when people really wanted to buy those, there was a lot of short-term demand, and we got these like spikes in demand. But you cannot build a security budget based on like very volatile, market-driven, hype-based, short-term like blips. Like, it has to be something that people really want in the long term. So it can't be like the flavor of the month, like the newest hot protocol where people are trying to get into early. So in order to really solve this in a long term, it has to be something that people are really comfortable with using for the long term. That's why I personally, I tried this. I tried to spam the chain with dick butts, and it was very successful. Like, I think, let's see, it should be here. Yeah, I think it's around here. This is me and my friends with these spikes. And a lot of people get angry about that. I thought I was doing something good, like I was saving Bitcoin, I was causing more fee revenue, I was, me and the gang saving the security budget. It was a great time. But I have since now matured a little bit and come to the conclusion that we need this to be thick and steady. And I think the way that you do that is by, let's say, for example, that we had a way to have transactions in Bitcoin that are fast, private. You can make as many of them as you want. Yeah, maybe it would require more space on the chain, but if the miners are getting paid, like, maybe that's a way. So if you just have like a high throughput system, everyone's paying a little bit, your transactions are large, and the actual use case that you're fulfilling is everyone wants to use Bitcoin now because it's private, it's fast, it's not depending on like Lightning with like you need inbound liquidity. And so if you build just a better transactional layer that actually gave people properties they wanted, maybe people will actually start using Bitcoin as a transactional layer more. So I'm mostly in favor of just like improving the functionality of the Bitcoin base layer itself so that people can transact with it. Because right now people are like afraid they'll make a transaction in Bitcoin, it exposes all their privacy. And it also takes 10 to 20 minutes, or they use a second layer which has all these other kinds of weirdnesses to it. So I think the solution is just make the base layer a little bit better, add a little bit better functionality so that people can transact with it in the way that people want.
Thank you so much, Eric. Let's give a round of applause to Eric. If you have other questions, he will be here. I think you will stay here. So if you want to ask him something, you will find him here.